Just be there for your kid. If he's got a problem, talk to him about it. Don't let him try and do things on his own. Like, get through everything on his own. You got to be there for him. Even if they don't want to talk, you still got to try. Don't give up.
We live in an era where drugs and alcohol are all too available to teenagers. This is a reality that can and must be changed. Recent state of Illinois statistics reveal that underage drinking in Iroquois County is higher than other counties. This means we all have work to do to help our teens learn how to cope with peer pressure, fitting in, and curiosity or boredom. Some kids are able to say no. Others have a difficult time with no. Together, we can help our teenagers to say yes to safe and healthy choices.
I was 12 when I first smoked. I am 17 years old. I would try my best to hide it until they started seeing things missing. I was always asking for the same amount of money every single day. When they wouldn't give me money, I would get mad. I'd break things. I would say I hate them. I would just throw a big fit because I didn't get that money. Hard to not use? At first, yeah. It's hard to just come here and leave home. You don't want to be away from your family and stuff. So, yeah. It's hard at first, but once you get it through your mind that it's for the best, it starts to get easier. And once you see the progress that you've made and how much of a difference it is, then it gets easier. And you start to want to not use anymore. Some of the work that we have to do here in groups and stuff, they kind of make you see what you used to do. And then when you look back at how much money you've spent, and it just clicks in your head how bad it usually was. You see the truth behind what you've done.
What could your mom and dad have done to keep you from going down this road?
My dad, nothing. My mom, she could have, I don't know, not enabled me, because when I was using, she knew I was using, and she still gave in to giving me money. I would lie to her and say, oh, I'm going to the movies. She didn't have the strength to say no to me. You just gotta have the willpower to say no to your child if you know they're using.
What advice would you give adults who don't know the dangers of teen drinking?
Try going to some type of meeting to get knowledge about the warning signs of what a person that is struggling with addiction does, what warning signs they are having that you should pay attention for. Understand what feelings they're going to be having while they're using, what behaviors. Just understand before it gets worse.
What caused you to relapse?
Me and my dad kind of got into a fight, and I never would have thought my dad would hit me, but it happened. And after that, it was his fault. It was all on him, but I was always blaming myself for it. So I thought I was the wrong with this situation. I thought I'm the reason why he hit me, but he was under the influence himself.
What else do you want people to know?
Know the warning signs. Get to it before it becomes a bigger problem. Stop it in its tracks before it's too late. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to help that person anymore.
What are the top 3 warning signs?
Constantly asking for the same amount of money, coming in late at night when you know you're not supposed to be, and the lies. Make sure to know exactly where your kids are going. If they're actually going to that place they're saying they're going to. Because if my mom knew exactly where I was going, I would not be in this seat right now because she wouldn't have let me leave. You need a safe zone, and that should be your home. Because once you leave this safe zone, you're vulnerable, and once you're vulnerable, you're going to use. And there's nobody there that's going to help you if you leave your safe zone. Thank you for letting me speak.
Your brain is always constantly growing and changing. Even when you get older, there's even new data to suggest that your brain is still changing all the time. But the most important years are, when you're younger and into your adolescence, because that's when the brain develops the most. Well, the brain is kind of bathed in your blood, and then this fluid which protects the brain. So anytime you're drinking, the alcohol gets into that fluid which bathes the brain, so it's constantly surrounding the brain. So it's never a good idea to drink to the point where they're drunk. That's always going to affect your brain. It can directly kill the brain cells. You're kind of born with as many brain cells as you're going to have. So once it's gone, it's gone. So you're really doing permanent damage. The problem is when you're young and you're a child, your brain is very resilient, meaning there's a lot of reserve left in the brain. So someone who drinks a lot, does a lot of drugs, may not feel the long-term effects right away because their brain is still developing and it can compensate for it. The problem is if you do that chronically over a long time, your ability to buffer and to compensate goes down and down and down. So unfortunately, by the time they realize that they're having damage from the alcohol and the drugs, it's almost too late. So it's better just to avoid even getting there. I guess if I try to relate to them, I would put it something like this. Maybe you could say something like, okay, you have a phone, you've got about 10 gigabytes of data, and that's all you get for your whole life. Once it's gone, it's gone. Well, let's say every day you're only using, half a megabyte. You go and you get drunk, you lose more cells, now you've lost a gigabyte. Now you've only got 90% of your data for the rest of your life. It has to last your whole life. I think that's a good way of thinking about it for them because you don't get those brain cells back. And then, when you get to the point, you start running out, you're like, well, I'm only 30, I've got another 50 years to live, but I only have 1 gigabyte of data. What am I going to do for those 50 years? You're really going to pay the price later, and you're really cutting off your potential. And I think if you think about it like that, you put it in terms where you can see where it's going. When you physically see it going away, it's much different than when you can't see it. Because unfortunately, you can't see the damage that you're doing. But if you make it graphic like that, I think it puts it in perspective for them.
When I first used, I was about 12 years old, 17 now. At first, it was not that often, like maybe a couple times a month. And then as it progressed, it was getting to like every week and then every day. At first it was just weed, and then it started into alcohol, like when I was 14, 15.
Why do you think kids start using?
Either curious or peer pressure. Trying to fit in with your friends, they all start using, so you want to look cool, so you use. I don't know, I didn't really like it at first. It was just weird. Didn't feel right. The only reason I really did it was because of friends. Then the more and more I started using, I started to like the feeling. After outpatient, I was sober for about 8.5 months. And then I got back with old friends, and it just started all over again. Started off drinking because I knew I wouldn't get caught, and then one thing leads to another. Ended up smoking again.
If you had one wish, what would it be?
To never take that first hit. Kind of led into everything. Don't turn to drugs. It's not a good way to deal with it. It's just going to lead from one bad thing to another. It's a vicious cycle.
Did your parents talk to you about drinking and drugs?
They didn't really. I mean, my mom and dad divorced when I was young, but I still see my dad on a regular basis, but they never really talked to me about it. It was just, that's why I was so curious. I wanted to know what it was through school, and my parents never told me what it was. Just be there for your kid. If he's got a problem, talk to him about it. Don't let him try and do things on his own. Get through everything on his own. You got to be there for him. Just try and talk to him. Even if they don't want to talk, you still got to try. Don't give up. Just got to sit down and try and have that talk with them.
How do you find real friends?
You just got to try and talk to people. Don't be shy, and actually go up and introduce yourself to people and find that right friend group that's not going to peer pressure you into doing drugs and drinking and stuff like that. A real friend wouldn't peer pressure you into that. They wouldn't lead you down that path. No one wants to think their kid's out doing drugs and They just want to think that their kid's all innocent, but sometimes you got to be tough on them and don't just, like, if they say they're going somewhere, don't just trust them with that. You have to actually, like, find out where they're going and know that they're going there for sure. I mean, I guess I've kind of been labeled bad, at least in my town, because of my background, because of all the drugs and whatnot, getting put on probation. Everyone makes bad decisions. That don't mean they're a bad person.
Drinking alcohol as a minor is a criminal offense. You can be prosecuted by the state's attorney's office for unlawful consumption of alcohol by a minor. One sip of alcohol on your breath, if detected by a police officer or through any kind of a scientific test administered by a police officer, can result in a criminal charge to either the driver or any passenger. And the penalty for that, even if you're a passenger, is that the Secretary of State will be notified and they will suspend your driver's license for the first offense for up to 6 months. If it's a second offense that you've been charged with as a minor for unlawful consumption of alcohol, again, even if you're not the driver and even if you're not intoxicated, then the Secretary of State can indefinitely suspend you. So it's their discretion as to how long they're going to suspend your driver's license. Back in 2013, the legislature did pass a social host law that criminalizes that behavior. It's focusing on parents who are knowingly providing alcohol to their teenage kids as well as kids as friends. So what the legislature decided is this is enough of a crisis and enough of a problem in the state of Illinois that we need to criminalize this behavior. So initially, the parents could be charged with a Class A misdemeanor for simply providing alcohol to their underage children. And that penalty can be increased as time goes on if the child or friends of the children are driving a vehicle and that vehicle then strikes and seriously injures or kills someone, then the parents could be liable for a felony offense. The old line, gee, I can let my kid drink at home and it's okay, is gone.
Debbie and I had gone to bed that night around 12, and Jared's curfew was about 12:30. I heard what I thought was like the car door here or the front door opening, and I thought like, oh, he's home, good, because you're always a little uneasy until, but actually what I had heard probably was the crash, because the crash was down on Route 17, 2 blocks from my house. The phone rang, I picked up the phone, it was Riverside. We need you to come in, your son's been in an accident. I said, is it serious? I said, yes. And so we came in, we prayed all the way. As we went by, we had to go through the wreck because the tow trucks and everything was still clear in the wrecks, and we saw that there was like 3 cars involved, and there was a big pile up, and the car they were in was shattered. And so then when we got to the hospital, the doctor was like, your son Jeremiah was in an accident tonight, and Jeremiah is dead. The idea of your kids experimenting with drugs or alcohol is so painful to most parents, they don't think about it at all. Or they tell themselves that, oh, it's just a phase, it's a rite of passage, and it's not, a one-time thing. It's a long-term thing. It keeps happening. And so some parents will say, well, the kids can stay here. I'll take their keys so there won't be any danger. Well, somebody always leaves, for one thing. And if they've been to 2 or 3 parties like that where, they've been able to drink under parental supervision, what do you think they're going to do when there isn't one the next week? You think they're not going to drink? It becomes part of their social scene. I would tell parents, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. You want your son to like you, you want his friends to think you're cool, but not at that expense, So don't be afraid to go, no, I need a phone number, where are you going, what's going on, what kind of party is this, is there drinking allowed, is there, who's driving, do they drink, all those kinds of things. And you need to be able to talk to them about it. And you also need to be vulnerable, because the whole holier than thou mentality doesn't connect, especially with teens. So it's like, look, it's not that I haven't screwed up, I screwed up. I just don't want you to screw up. I don't want you to even suffer the things that I suffered, much less it could be a lot worse, because it's a lot more prevalent now and it's a lot more available. So you really want to
hit it hard. You really got to have a relationship where kids can talk to you, you know, about everything. And I felt we had all those things, and I think we did. I just think Jeremiah was, you know, it took the risk and it didn't work. If you're drunk, or if you're riding with somebody who's drunk, you don't have control enough to escape it.
It's so important that the parents who think that this is a rite of passage, that they want to be cool and friends with their kids, they are really hurting their child. So not only do they provide alcohol to their children, they provide alcohol to their children's friends. We need to start these conversations and calling each other and talking to each other.
I agree. I think that's what worked. In my family, we just made sure if they were invited to a party, we would call to see if the adults were going to be there or if they were providing alcohol.
I just give them options of different things to go do that are,
Right.
you know, just to keep them busy and everything. I mean, just, you know, go bowling or go to a movie or, you know, find somewhere to eat or, you know, stay at our house and hang out in the basement, movies, whatever, you know. That's why I liked having them at my house.
It's not a conversation that you can have just one time. No drinking, no other drugs. It's a conversation that we have all the time with our kids when they were in high school, that it's a constant reminder. I don't think any parent wants to put their child in a risky situation. And, you know, do we want Iroquois County to be known as the underage drinking capital of the state?
Just be there for your kid. If he's got a problem, talk to him about it. Don't let him try and do things on his own. Like, get through everything on his own. You got to be there for him. Even if they don't want to talk, you still got to try. Don't give up.
We all have a role to play in the prevention of teen drinking. Parents, communities, schools, police departments, churches, neighbors, grandparents, everyone. Our kids are depending on us to set strong rules about drinking and using, to say no when it's easier to say yes, to talk about drinking with them often and openly, to work with your friends and neighbors to keep our kids safe. They're depending on us to keep our eyes wide open, looking closely at what they're doing, not the other way. Tough love does work. They need us to show them how to cope with the stress of teenage years, to help them make healthy choices, to choose living and themselves over peer pressure. Your kids, my kids, their kids, our kids. Together, we can.